Best
I
of luck, Sudhakar.
welcome
Sudhakar.
that would be on revolutionizing a skill landscape to create future-ready workforce, emerge as and a role of education and industry, and we have very relevant and pertinent, speakers from the industry, from the government. First, to do the honors, I like to call upon a very senior officer associated with the Government of India, Sunita Sanghi ji, who is the Principal Advisor, Ministry of Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India. Sanghi ji has played a very crucial role in shaping up the skilling and entrepreneurship image in India, and a lot of programs from the Government of India to various playing a very crucial role. Welcome, Sunita ji. Thanks for joining us. And next, I would like to our speaker, who is a well-known over 4 decades of experience in the telecom industry. He is the Chief Executive Officer with the telecom sector, Mr. Arvind Bali. Welcome, Mr. Bali. Thanks for joining us. And we also have a representative from the Government of Goa, Mr. Deepak Desai, Director of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of Goa. Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak, joining us. And we're also joined by a very important organization with the Government of Telangana, which is specially focused on giving wings to the business ideas of women and girls in the state. That is V-Hub. We have the Chief Executive Officer with the V-Hub, Deepti Raula. Thank you very much, Deepti, for joining us.
Hi.
And to moderate this, we also have the CEO of Telangana Academy of Skill and Knowledge, Mr. Shrikant Sinha, who was the former CEO of NASCOM Foundation, and TASC plays a very important role in bridging the gap between the academia and industry, employable and entrepreneurs. And for this very important session, we have a very eminent personality who also mentors startups. He rose up from being a brand manager to a director of branding, and he plays a very crucial role of the important institution named ICFI Group. Welcome, Mr. Sudhakar, Director Branding, ICFI Group. Thank you very much for joining us. With this, I hand over the session to you. Over to you.
Yeah, good evening to all the esteemed members on the panel. I also would like to welcome all the listeners and viewers who just logged into APAC show today, which is collaborated with the Collegiate of Technical Education, Government of Telangana. I'm very happy to be here as a moderator, and the role of moderator is to talk less and listen more, and I'm going to abide by that. I would like to now start with Madam Sunita Sanghi, who is the Principal Advisor from the Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of India, to share with us the opening remarks with respect to the panel discussion today. And from there, I think we would like to pick up a few learnings and rotate a few questions with other members as well. So once we finish the opening remarks, then we have some specific first round of questions to each of the eminent panelists, and followed by some cross-questioning and some solutions that we would like to seek for the problems that we are facing with respect to the skills landscape. May I now invite Ms. Sunita Sanghi.
Thank you, Sudhakar ji. Let me at the outset thank everyone, the Telangana government, also APEC, for inviting me for this particular workshop. It's very, very important. And it's very contemporary also, given the fact that we are enjoying a demographic advantage. I just want to indicate one thing, that I just superannuated on 30th of November from the Ministry of Skill Development, where I was working as principal advisor. And currently I'll be joining as consulting advisor in the National Council for Vocational Education and Training. Now, coming to, I think the topic today that has been chosen, it's very, very important given the fact that India is enjoying a demographic advantage vis-a-vis the rest of the world. And we have been talking about that we need to make India the skill capital of the world. But given the fact that there are changes that are happening in the ecosystem, when I say ecosystem, there are changes that are happening in the technology, and the multiplier effect that the COVID kind of a pandemic has had, this has really revolutionized the entire skill ecosystem. Now, from the Ministry of Skill Development, which was set up in 2015, number of initiatives have been taken just to address this particular challenge, that how do we have our workforce which is future ready. Now, if you look at the synergy between the education and the skill ecosystem in a society, in a country, we know that it is literally shaped by the prevailing socio-economic condition in a country. Now, India was a global leader, if you look at in the medieval countries, in institutionalizing the excellence in education through the Gurukul tradition till the medieval period. But this practice did not survive, as we all know, in the wake of the first industrial revolution. Now, since then, I think we have been the followers of the global trends and practices. Now, while India has made considerable progress in the massification of higher education by rolling out formal academic education to a large section of the population, both in the school ecosystem as also in the higher education ecosystem post-independence, the model which has been exemplified by the Ivy Leagues of Harvards and the Yales of the world, I think still have an edge over the rest of the world. Now today, as the Industrial Revolution IR4 is upon us, the world is again under the throes of complete transformation of education in the skill ecosystem. Now this is characterized by a movement towards personalized and experiential learning, distributed classrooms, and increasing significance of life skills like adaptation and resilience as compared to traditional academic traits. Now, with our demographics, I think we have the maximum potential gains and losses which are emanating out of this particular transformation. Now, we are currently adding close to about 1 million of people to the workforce every year. And if we are able to channelize our youth to gainful education and skills, we can reap a superlative, I think, economic returns with our current working population and emerge as a skill capital of the world. But when you look at the quality of people who are entering the workforce, you will realize that more than 80% are such who are not even 10th pass. I mean, this is what, more than 70% are such which are not even 10th pass. Now, in such a scenario, when we are having Industrial Revolution 4.0, there are continuous changes in the work front. How do I make my workforce future ready and work to accept and to change, to take up the job opportunities that are going to be there in the future? Now, the need today, therefore, is to move quickly to utilize this demographic window and integrate this window with the global value chains to create sustainable dependencies on India's manufacturing and service potential, as IR 4.0 shall tilt the balance towards automation and machine learning and shall make labor a less significant factor of production. But then, as I said, that we have a workforce and we have those people entering the labor market who are little less educated and little less skilled. So there is a challenge for the policymakers. Now, policymakers across the world, including in India, are therefore reshaping their human capital strategies to align and benefit from the changes which have been unleashed by the IR 4.0. Now, if I look at the skill ecosystem, there are a number of measures that have been taken since 2015. Not only that the National Skill Policy on Skill Development was put in place, which rightly focused on not only channelizing, not only correcting the skill supply, the people who are entering the labor market, correcting them, creating a workforce, and then creating a workforce for the market, and also creating a demand for that workforce by connecting with the industry. Now, the model that we developed in the skill ecosystem was a model which was very unique to India in the sense, for the first time to achieve a scale of skilling close to about 500 million people, a short-term training ecosystem was developed. Another short-term training ecosystem, this pandemic has shown that unless and until we change the way we do our delivery and the way the technology is changing, it will not be possible for us to actually develop a workforce which can meet the requirement of the coming generation and coming industrial revolution. Now, to address that particular challenge, a digital portal called eSkill India has been rolled out for all those industrial skill seekers who can enroll in e-learning courses from an aggregated catalog. And the portal is offering the courses from an aggregated catalog. It's offering the courses which are curated from the knowledge providers such as IBM, SAS, Upgrad, British Council, and Cyler Academy, including in areas such as data analytics, customer relationship, management, and entrepreneurship. Now, there are 10 emerging technologies which have been identified, including cybersecurity, AI, big data, cloud computing, blockchain, and 53 new age skills for Industry 4.0, which have been promulgated by the NSTC. This was as far as our short-term training ecosystem was concerned. Given the fact that we have a sustainable ecosystem in the name of the Industrial Training Institute, the ministry from its side had also ensured that to have a future-ready workforce, these industrial training institutes, which are 6 decades old, are also modernized. We initiated a program way back in 2007 and 2012 then to modernize these institutes and ensure that we are able to connect with the industry and we are able to have a flexi MOUs with the industries so that we are able to train our people according to our own requirement. Now, to cater to the industry requirement, the Ministry of Skill Development, and for that matter, the Government of India, and large number of ministries which are actually doing the skill development, are now focusing on the job training through the apprenticeship program. Now, the apprenticeship program, the Apprenticeship Act, which is being administered by the Ministry of Skill Development, has been hugely amended to actually make it more industry friendly. And it is so amended that if any industry wants today to meet its requirement by employing an apprentice in a course which meets its own requirement of either IR4 or to make a future-ready workforce, they can certainly hire an apprentice under the amended act and then develop a course curriculum duly approved by the industry, the apprenticeship advisor, central apprenticeship advisor, or the state apprenticeship advisor, so that they are not facing a shortage of appropriately skilled manpower. The Government of India has also provided incentive to especially to the micro, small and medium enterprises so that they're also able to take the apprenticeship, because everybody knows that the learning happens on the shop floor. The learning happens actually on the workplace. That is why there is a huge focus on the apprenticeship. And this apprenticeship, I think, if the industry is able to take the apprentices, whether it is the big industry or the small industry, it will certainly ensure that you have a future-ready workforce. The second important initiative that has been undertaken is that we know that in a country like India, where we have a huge number of people who are informally employed, whether in the organized sector, whether in the organized or the unorganized sector, they are, over a year period of time, they have developed certain skill sets. But then those skill sets may not be very relevant, because this pandemic, especially in a condition like pandemic, which has shown that many job roles have thus gone out of the air and they don't exist today. Now, this ministry or the Government of India today is now focusing on reskilling and upskilling. And I think upskilling is one mechanism through which we can ensure that the workforce is future ready, because the way the technology is changing every now and then, it is very, very important that those who are entering the labor market, their skill sets are updated as and when the technology is changing. Now, we have 39 sector skill councils, because we also realized from the government side that it is very, very necessary to bring on board industry in the picture. Therefore, there are 39 sector skill councils which have been incubated by the National Skill Development Corporation. And these are industry-led bodies. They are the ones which are actually doing the mapping, what kind of a skill sets are required in the labor market, and then develop the course curriculum. And the course curriculum are standardized as per the National Skill Qualification Framework, so that it becomes, the industry has the relevant workforce as soon as there are changes, because they are the ones, these sector skill councils are anticipating the kind of job roles which are going to be relevant going forward. Now we have the sector skill council called NESCOM, which is supported again, I said, by the NSDC. They have developed the future skill platform through the EdCast, and this future skill is a service platform which is aggregating the training programs from premium providers like Udemy, edX, Microsoft, etc., to cater to the skill development, reskilling and upskilling needs of employees in NESCOM member companies. We have also initiated to ensure that in the previous session, I was just in the last I entered, I think in the higher education ecosystem also we have initiated what we call a degree apprenticeship, because there have been talks that the employability quotient of those who are coming out of the higher education ecosystem is little low. So to ensure that those who are coming out of the higher education ecosystem, a degree apprenticeship program has been initiated. So any student who is pursuing an undergrad course can go in the second and the third semester of their undergrad courses, the second or third year, the apprenticeship program of the choice in which the sector in which they want. And this is going to be a big push as well as far as the services sector, the manufacturing sector is concerned. We are also contemplating to initiate a short-term training program for these undergrad students so that they are able to gauge and they are able to skill themselves as per the market requirement. But though these measures have been taken, the skill ecosystem has to still gear up to address several structural shifts that for creating an enabling policy architecture to help India's education skill ecosystem. And I'll just deliberate on some of these quickly. First and foremost is the integration of digital technology is critical for the education skilling ecosystem to enhance the access, inclusion, and quality. Now, with the advancement in means of communication and new age technologies, digitization of the learning process has really become a hygiene factor. This has to be done across the value chain, content creation, delivery, integration in pedagogy, and building digital pathways to improve the trainer quality. And I think this was what was focused in the previous session as well, monitoring and the evaluation function. Now, this should result ideally in improving the outcomes in regions which are either remote or traditional laggards in the physical infrastructure and light ecosystem. Because in a country like India, which is a very diverse country, there are challenges in terms of you have a demographic advantage in states which may be lagging in the infrastructure. So the overall efficiency is also expected to improve, I think, with the digitization, because then we can have the virtual classroom using the infrastructure somewhere and the student somewhere else. And these are the models which have been actually used in the skill ecosystem, and there's a state which is doing it proactively. The Kerala has been doing it proactively. And as a first step, the process is to decide the costing. But the question really is how much does it cost? Because there is a cost is involved when you convert from the face-to-face skilling to the digital skilling. And we have already initiated the process of estimating the cost for such kind of a digital skilling. Now, second is the movement towards the learner centricity. Now, the age of fitting people to predefined course regimens has lived its course actually. And while we now have modern liberal universities which are enabling multidisciplinary learning, like a combination of maths with the music or maybe the life sciences, but this has to expand multifold from some island of excellence to the mainstream. Now, in the skilling ecosystem as well, now skills delivery has to really customize and made more learner centric. In the first phase of Making Skill India mission, the focus has been to take the skills to the unskilled. Now, large government have brought people in the skill fold with huge increase in access, inclusion, standardization in content. But going forward now, we are focusing on meeting the aspiration of the youth. And we are also focusing on not only meeting the aspiration of the youth, but also mapping the aspiration in such a fashion that we are actually able to meet the requirement of our industry. Because only then we are able to meet the requirement of the economy, and we are able to bring in the desired benefit of this demographic advantage that India has to the economy, to the enterprises, and to the individual. The transformation, therefore, we need now is to develop Skill 4.0, which is very personalized and experiential. All the elements, the content, industrial relevance, assessments, and reach need to have the flexibility to make the process learner-centric. We have initiated our process. We are already developing an app which is called I Want to Skill Myself. We also have a portal called Aseem Portal, which is actually connecting the youth who are skilled with the industry. And that gives us an idea about the gap. Because if industry is not requiring the people who are already skilled, we immediately get to know through this particular portal that what is the industry demand. The next important thing that we are focusing on is lifelong learning, because this can be another lever to harness the opportunities which are presented by industrial revolution or the future of jobs. The completion of education and skilling once you land your first job shall no longer be a template for the future, because we have to continuously inculcate the practice of lifelong learning in our candidates so that they are not disadvantaged in the global labor market. I can now say that when I joined the service 36 years ago, the kind of skill set that we had then, we had to modify and we had to upgrade ourselves even in the government setup, because without that upgradation, it was not possible us to actually give the input for the policy. That is why at whichever level you are, at whichever occupation you are, lifelong learning is very, very important. And this we have to really inculcate so that they are not at disadvantage in the global labor market. Now, more than 40%, if we look at the Australian workforce, for instance, they are enrolled at a given point of time in reskilling effort during their careers. While progressive organizations in select industries like IT and financial services have started focusing on continuous reskilling efforts, I think we need to make provisions in the government programs which we are running for skill development to enable that there is a lifelong learning is a significant part of overall skill development effort. We from the Ministry of Skill Development are looking at apprenticeship as one mechanism for lifelong learning. Now, fourth important issue that we need to address to ensure that we have a future ready and job ready workforce, we have to evolve initiatives to make relevant space for our blue collar workers in the IR 4.0. Now, reports by the agencies, including the World Economic Forum, indicate that while a lot of jobs shall disappear due to automation and robotics, millions of new jobs are going to be there. And by application in these technologies in production and services, I still remember when the computers were coming, everybody was saying, now the jobs are going to go up. But no, when you actually see the end game, there are more jobs than we have lost the jobs. So however, these jobs will require professionals, even in the blue collar capacity, to have at least a working knowledge of innovative technologies such as AI, ML, and data analytics. This can be tackled by identifying key technologies which shall expand over the 5 to 10 years, say cybersecurity, AI, mobile applications, etc. A parallel, I think, juxtaposition of these technologies with sector-wise job roles shall provide us with significant insights on which of the existing qualifications and skill sets need immediate upgradation. Industry and sector skill councils, led centers of excellence, can lead the plan to develop reskilling and upskilling modules wherever required so as to enable existing and new workforce to seamlessly deploy or leverage these technologies for higher productivity. Ministry of Skill Development has already initiated a program to ask to incentivize the industries to come up with the centers of excellence, which are actually doing research and innovation. Because it is only through research and innovation we get to understand the kind of changes that are going to happen in the labor market. And it becomes very, very important in a country like India, where we have more than 93% working in the informal category and close to about 84% in the unorganized sector with a very low level of education and low level of skills. Now, fifthly, I think we need a system-wide upgrade, higher level skilling. There is a perceptible gap in our ecosystem today in supply in higher level of skilling beyond the national skill qualification level 5. This may perhaps be because, as I said, that we have a low level of education, low level of skills of those who are entering the labor market. And accordingly, most of the existing training that is happening in the country is up to the National Skill Qualification Framework Level 5, which is being supported by the government scheme. So what we require today to meet the future requirement is that we need to have a system-wide upgrade, which has to be in alignment with both general and vocational education streams to ensure the higher level of skilling. It is, I think, only through the higher level of skilling that technical requirement in digital technologies, data analytics, etc. could be met. And this is required across government program, whether it is smart city programs or a digital skilling program or any program, you require a higher level of skilling. Finally, I think we need to address the unfinished agenda of integrating the general education with the vocational education. Because even today, the general education and simple BA is preferred over any vocational education, whereas globally across, it is the vocational education which is preferred even today over the general education, because it is the vocational education which provides huge opportunities in the industry. Now we need to think about as to why it is in the countries like Germany or Switzerland, there is a perfect integration between the two systems. If you look at that, I think it is the industry has to play a very critical role. When we look at the dual model in the German, it is the industry which is driving it. Because when industry accept the student and they take upon the responsibility themselves that they are going to skill the people, half the time the student is spending in the industry on the shop floor to understand and to learn. Only for 1/3 of their total time they're spending for the theory. That is the connect that we require in the Indian ecosystem also. From the ministry side, we have initiated wherein we are trying to develop right from the school level an experiential learning for the student in sync with the national education policy, so that we see that going forward, 50% of the general education candidate actually look and go for the vocational education. Now, in combination, I feel with the above strategies, we need the assistance of a couple of externalities also for actualizing the vision on the ground. And these are very, very essential. One, I think we need to have a strong communication channel. Two, we also need to have a career counseling. And going forward to make India the skill capital of the world, we need to ensure that we are able to map our standards with the global standards. The work has already started and it is a continuous work and it's a continuous process. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for that extensive address of yours, which was comprehensive. Thank you very much. And with this, I would request Mr. Sudhakar to take over and start moderating the session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your initial remarks. I think it has set the context for the entire discussion today. I also would like to remind the viewers that around the panel, we have a collective experience of about 150 years put together. We all have cut our teeth in learning, in action, and in outcomes. In some of the responses that we are going to seek now, I'm sure all of us will talk about outcome-based actions or recommendations which are actionable. Very quickly, for the benefit of all of us, I think I would like to put some bullet points so that we capture the problem in the right manner. We all know that 54% of the population in India is below 25 years of age, and more people are going to join in this, and eventually this is going to end. This romance of demographic dividend is going to end by 2040. Now, the annual employability survey of last year, we don't have this year's survey, but 2019 survey by Aspiring Minds, it tells us that about 95% of engineers are unfit for IT jobs. And this was further corroborated by the IT industry leaders only. And they say that the entire IT industry recruited only 6% of engineering graduates, at least the IT companies in India. 83% of the graduates are unemployable owing to lack of technical or management skills required to survive in the 21st century or the new age industries. And on the other hand, out of the 450 million labor force that we have, more than 50% are illiterate or only having some primary education. 50 million with secondary education, 7.9 million underwent some kind of vocational training, and a mere 10.5 million fall under what is called technically qualified experience. Now, how does it compare with some of the other countries in the world? I think in India, we are only 2.3% of the workforce which has undergone formal skill training as compared to 68% in UK, 75% in Germany, 52% in USA, 80% in Japan, and 96% in South Korea. Added to this, every year we add about 12 million new job seekers that enter the Indian labor market, but we create only about 5 million jobs. And we know the problem of employability owing to, or lack of employment owing to the skill gaps that we have. Now, why should we worry about it? We should worry about it because although we don't have the infrastructure, although we do not have active labor market legislations, the single important factor that is the skilled workforce, which is going to help us emerge as global manufacturing hub in the current world, where there are changes that are taking place in favor of India if we wake up and if we take action in the right direction. It is necessary because this is only the skilled workforce is going to create an ecosystem which will level the incomes, which will create wealth and probably the economic growth in future. Now, with this as a problem to start with, I would like to welcome Ms. Deepti. Ms. Deepti is about, she is the CEO of Women Entrepreneurs Hub. This is part of government of Telangana. It's an initiative which is very, very interesting and laudable. They're doing great work over there. I would like to call upon Ms. Deepti to explain what kind of role they are playing in building skills, especially for girls and women. And from there on, we catch up on subsequent questions with others as well. Deepti Raula.
Hello, Mr. Sudhakar. Thank you so much for the introduction. And Ma'am Sunita, it was a pleasure hearing you speak. And it is great to see you after about, I think, 3 years. When WeHub was just started, that is when I had an opportunity to spend about half an hour with you when we were driving to the airport. So that is where it is nice to see you again. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So Sudhakar Garu, to start off with, ma'am has set the context very beautifully. So we talk a lot about industrialization and everything else. So for our work at WeHub, our premise is quite simple. See, we want to make sure that we create the next generation of female leaders, right? Female digital leaders. And what does digital leaders, what do they actually need? So they need a combination of technology skills, they need a combination of people skills, and they need a combination of entrepreneurial skills. So all we are trying to do is very simple. I mean, if we look at the problem of if we try to tackle too many things at once, it'll become too difficult. So for us, the focus is purely on making sure that we engage more and more female participation in the workforce. And for that, to develop the people skill, the entrepreneurial skill, and the technical skills. These are the 3 areas, 3 pillars that we look at. And the next thing that we look at is also how do we handle these 3 pillars and how do we create programs for overcoming these 3 barriers. So the first thing that we've done at WeHub is to make sure that we keep girls and young women active and confident in the STEM fields. Not because, we don't expect that, everybody who goes through a STEM course has to become an engineer, but the broadening of horizons is something that we are looking at extensively by keeping more girls and young women confident and and active in the STEM fields. The second thing that we do, and that is the main purpose of VHub, is making sure that we develop the business and entrepreneurial skills for the young girls. So how do we do that? It is not just like, when you say entrepreneurial skills, it is not by saying that, you do step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and just, by the time you're step 10, you're becoming an entrepreneur. That is not what you're trying to look at. All we are trying to say is, again, we are trying to make sure that, girls and a lot of the young people and women who are part of the digital world today, they understand what business is, they understand what entrepreneurship is, and they look at this as one of the careers that can be taken forward. And the third thing that we're actually trying to do is also enabling more female tech entrepreneurs. See, today, if you look at the tech entrepreneurship space and you look at the number of women entrepreneurs that are there, it is actually a very, very few. There are a lot of reasons for it. That is another different conversation. But what we're actually trying to do is to make sure that, we clear a lot of the barriers that the tech entrepreneurs, specifically the female entrepreneurs, face in the hardware space. See, access to funding is a big aspect, right? So when you want to create a hardware and you want to create a hardware technology platform, a lot of the female entrepreneurs have an issue with funding. So that is number one. Second thing is access to networks. The third thing is access to talent pool. Number 4 is also access to technology. So these are the 4 to 5 hurdles that we've identified, and we are clearing this out. So these are the few things that we are trying to do at VHub. But I think if we were to talk about what else we are doing, it's going to be another very long conversation. So I will hand it off and we'll come back to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Deepti. I think we'll come back to you and ask you a few more questions about some interesting steps that you guys are taking at VHub. But for now, I would like to move to Mr. Arvind Bali, who is the CEO designate for Telecom Sector Skill Council. Sir, with your great experience in various roles over the last 37 years, I'm sure you will be able to help us understand and decode how this problem will have to be addressed and some of the key recommendations and concerns that you would like to raise for handling the skills landscape as a whole. Over to you, Mr. Arvind Bali.
Yeah, so my maximum experience, like 37, has been in the industry. Like I worked in India, abroad, and last 1.5 years I've been giving all my time to skilling side. So one thing which I found that there is a big gap as far as skilling ecosystem and the industry. Like the linkage is very, very weak. They are working into different silos. Unlike the world where people, when they are either taking their education or whether they are in engineering colleges or even in technical diploma colleges, they also have apprenticeship with the industry. In India, that part was missing. Industry, most of the time, as you also gave the stats, like 2.3% only the trained manpower is actually utilized by the industry. So because of that, what we find that most of the time industry is not getting the right people, and also the people who are getting trained are not getting properly absorbed. So that is a big gap. The issue is the whole initiative. Like somehow, like we have been managing industry. Like we have been managing industry with on-the-job trainings, right? We were doing that. But when this big Skill India mission was started, one of the objective was that we have got so much of youth adding into the mainstream, and the jobs are not increasing so much, whereas the world needs youngsters from India, like Japan, Korea, many countries in Europe. They need youth, youngsters to work in their countries. Now, when we want to take them to those countries, I think there's a big gap between the skill they have got and the requirements in those countries are there. Some of them are still able to go, like in Middle East, we see that a lot of Indian workers are going. But problem is they go at very, very low level jobs. If we are able to skill youth properly, train them properly and create a brand for them, I think they'll all be able to get much better return and they will do much better in their life. Like IT professionals from India has a brand. They are preferred world over. If we can make same kind of brand for skilled workers from India, I think it is going to give a lot of benefit. And it is not a very difficult task because the new technologies are very easy to adopt. You need not go to 30 years back to really catch up on that. Like for example, all this digital thing which is happening, if we really want to educate our youth, it will not take much time. In any case, they are digitally connected, they understand all that. So it is just a focus, it is just a mindset which we have to change. And ultimately, I think we'll be able to achieve that objective. Thank you. You're on mute, Sudhakar, you're on mute.
I have been muted by your excellent remarks, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Deepak Desai, who is the director at the Directorate of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Government of Goa. Now, Government of Goa is doing some interesting stuff. That's what I browsed and understood. And that is something really, really encouraging. So in the first round, sir, we would like to understand from you, what is the canvas that you have architected for the state of Goa with respect to skill building?
Please repeat it. Please repeat it. Hello, Sudhakar ji, please repeat it. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it is weak, sir.
Yeah.
Your audio is weak.
1 minute, just 1 minute. 1 minute, please.
Government of Goa is louder in action.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Little better, sir. It is improving.
Hello, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you for giving me opportunity for this today's panel discussion here. You know, everybody knows that Goa is a smallest state among one of the smallest state, and I think we have a maybe it is compared to the other states, we are maybe the in area wise district of the bigger state and all these things. One thing, there are some positive things in this, that we have a maximum government ITRs in this. We have in all the blocks, that is a taluka, where we can reach to the all the youth in the states where we can. But there were something there were challenges, something, and still there are more challenges, like national level. All challenges are there. We have to go a long way into the cities, and by looking up into the new national education policy 2020, we have to cope up with the national education policy, and we have to also uh, change ourselves to how to align with the new education policy. There are many challenges also. Now, the point of what I noted in the first my instance, because I came in this field, this department I am holding for last 2 years, which as it is earlier, madam also insisted on this linking of or participation of the industries is the main things what we are lacking, maybe everywhere it is, because skill is such a that only classroom studies cannot help to give the perfect training. It may be just giving a lecture basis, and you know that in our ITS pattern we have there are so many challenges: the outdated machineries, the outdated curriculum, the outdated means not a well trained instructors are some of the things which we have to face. And to cope up with these things, our first thing was to target the industry. Either it may be implementation of apprenticeship act, as madam has seen there compared to existence of industries in our state, and those who are on the in the field on the registration of portal. So we have taken a lot of initiative in this field. So we have signed the MOU with the leading industries in this. Also, when you cause the industries also to give us, for example, we have already signed the MOU with one of the leading industry called Siemens, and another German company. It's a three-party MOUs called the GIZ. So they are for giving a international training to our trainers and to the trainees also. This is one of the things where we can, our people, our student, our trainees and our instructor will get international training. We have another best institution here.
Looks like there is some network problem.
Reputed institution training at the higher level, not only for our training like instructor trainees, but it will include also for soft training, soft skill also to the even our administrative staff also. So what I have seen is initially we are lacking the not only the a particular latest training or the latest skill. It is necessary to skill, upskill, and reskill also necessary. And our setting a mindset that is has to be changed. So psychological behavior change is also required. So this will be done by our this institution that is called GE, which is a famous institution in management. So that is also we have signed another MOU with our NSDC also to start the international skill center at Goa, and we have given them a building space. Though mostly we are trying to start it by January, February in the coming, so international. So this is not only, so this will be starting not in the health sector. So it is not that we are limited to only industrial training institute. So we have to increase our scope. So also now we are going to start another 5 courses which is related to the health sector. So separate space we are getting from the district hospital, which is a newly constructed hospital. So we are also going to start these 5 courses. And I would like to say that we are also starting another course in the health, multi-purpose health workers. So that is where we are also collaborating with the health sector, as our minister is also a health minister, and he is taking a lot of initiative in this field. Now, coming to the point of the challenges also, there are a lot of challenges. I think we can discuss it at a later stage.
Later, yeah.
After coming to the second round also.
Right, sir. Now, thank you very much for those remarks. As I said, there are many things to discuss about Goa. We'll come back to you a little later. Now, I request Mr. Srikanth Sinha, the CEO of Telangana Academy for Skill and Knowledge. This is one of the smartest acronyms that I've come across in the recent times, TASK. Apart from the fact that I know that you do a lot of good stuff in terms of, I'm a big fan of Makerspace Labs that you really champion, and also the way you connect with the sector skills councils. But what I would like to ask you today and explain to all of us is, how do you transform the student force into industry-ready workforce? Over to you, Mr. Srikanth.
Thank you, Sudhakar-ji, and pleasure being with such an august, panelists over here. Sunatha-ji, it was wonderful listening to you. The first thing is we look at what the industry requires. So we have industry roundtables, etc., that we conduct. We try to understand what the industry requires. As you rightly said, we work with Arvindji and other sector skills council very, very closely. And in fact, if we look at, along with the Telecom Sector Skills Council, we have been training people for splicing and internet connectivity, and a lot of other programs also we have done with them. We have also worked very closely with Life Sciences Skill Development Corporation and others. So basic thing starts with what does the industry require? That's where we start. Then we look at where are the gaps. So we have got 3 pillars on which we operate. The first one being education. Education doesn't mean we run academic programs, but we look at the academic programs and see where are the gaps between the programs and the industry, and try to create programs, try to work with partners and ensure that the people are skilled on those particular areas. Second is, we conduct a lot of 21st century transferable skills kind of programs, etc., so that our students have a better chance at facing the interviews, etc. Probably we are one of the only government websites where a lot of private corporates also come and advertise their jobs, etc. And that's where we further find out as to what are the skill requirements. We do a lot of job fairs. We do, for example, recently in our moving towards the district and the rural population of Telangana, the IT department has set up IT towers. So we do job melas, 5,000 people on an average turn up for these job melas. And then with the shortlisting and we do those trainings. So that's the second part of it. And third, of course, while Deputy and we have T-Hub, etc., are the ecosystem partners for actually incubating the entrepreneurs, our thing towards entrepreneurship is ensuring that an entrepreneurial mindset is created, that people are able to understand what is an entrepreneur, how do you work. And right now, as we speak, on 2nd of December, we launched a program, which is, essentially, if I translate it into English, it says, social innovation for simplifying lives. And we have 7,000 rural youth actually undergoing that program, trying to understand what rural entrepreneurship is all about. Another example, which I'd like to bring on over here, specifically from a finishing school point of view, because whatever our institutions are training or whatever inputs we give, we cannot train them for exactly what are the requirements of the industry in some of the cases. For example, when one of the largest aircraft engine manufacturers was setting up a plant here in Telangana, we worked with them. They were looking at aeronautical engineering students, but most of the aeronautical engineering colleges across the country have World War II engines on which they train, which are nothing relevant to what we have now. So we worked with them. We went to the districts. We went to the polytechnics over there. Electronics, electrical, mechanical students were identified. We counseled them so that they can start looking at an aerospace career, working in this industry. A 45 days training was done for them, but the selection process was not a written test. They were given nuts and bolts, and they were asked to fasten it and unfasten it. They were given 3D, objects, which they were supposed to place on a sheet of paper on which these objects' image was kept in different directions. So we were actually looking at what are the skills, what are the attitudes that are required by the industry, aerospace in this case. So here we are talking about 3D spatial thinking. We are looking at hand dexterity, etc., etc. And that's how we selected these people and trained them. And happy to share with you, out of a batch of 100, this was the hire and train model. We brought it down to 75, and those 75 were given offer letters by this company, and 51 actually got recruited over there. The reason I highlighted this is that this is typically how we would work with any organization in case they would like specific skill level trainings to be provided to them. Probably I'll come to other points later.
Great. I would also like to know more about the technology entrepreneurship program, but that's in the second round. And
sure.
What kind of opportunities that you have built for all of us around the country, more specifically for the state of Telangana. We'll come to that definitely, Mr. Srikanth. Sure. Now I would like to request Ms. Deepthi to tell us, I'm told that roughly about 50% of the women engineers drop out after working for about 5 to 6 years or 5 to 8 years. And when they return to work, what kind of support, what kind of skills that you help them with? This is a very important thing. And also please address briefly, what is this VM inclusion, Tara, which I read about on your website? All this bundled into a very quick response from you.
Yes, that's actually quite 50% drop off is quite interesting. And with COVID, it's going to go a little bit higher, I think. So that is something that we need to take into account. And very quickly, so for getting a lot of women back to work, what we've done is instead of trying to run a skilling program ourselves, because we are not a skilling entity, we either work with task or we work with corporates, because at the end of the day, whoever wants to come back to the workforce has to work in the industry. And there is a lot of returnship programs that are being envisioned by a lot of corporates, including Amazon. Amazon is doing it. Sequoia is also doing it, and also so is VMware. So what we've done is we've partnered with Amazon as well as VMware, where the corporate trains these women who want to come back to work in the technical skills, and VHub becomes like their mentoring and knowledge buddy. The reason this is needed is because a lot of these returnship programs work on a broadcast model. So when you work in a broadcast model, what happens is that you are delivering what you're delivering. But the point is that to be employable, as ma'am really mentioned, employability and skilling are two different things. So we work with these women on working towards creating being able to pitch for themselves better. We also work on making sure that the gender pay gap is also not affected, because of the pandemic, if you're aware, it is actually going to go back 25 years. So that is one thing that we are also trying to address. So briefly, this is what we do. And we never actually engage in any skilling programs ourselves, but we bring in the corporates themselves, and we want to make sure that this becomes not a single VHub effort, but it becomes like an industry-wide effort to get more women back to work. I hope that answers.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Arvind Bali, I would like to know from you that given the fact that more and more technology skills are in demand, 50% of today's jobs require probably technology skills, and this might go up to 77% in less than a decade from now. Now, world over, this is becoming a reality, and therefore, in emerging technologies, more number of jobs are being created. So what kind of skills pipeline that we have already created or we are on our path to creating? Any thoughts on this, sir?
Yeah, so we talk about ICT mainly because telecom overlaps with electronics and IT on both the sides. And a lot of jobs are actually coming to this sector because of automation. So Industry 4.0 has created a lot of demands on robotics, on artificial intelligence, and also connected devices. But when it comes to that, you also need a lot of support on cybersecurity and also attending to these technology as such. So what is required is to begin with, unlike most of the other skill councils where, like people can start from anywhere. In our case, there is a very basic education or basic requirement is there so that, people can then pick up from there. So what we are trying to do is we have got some high new courses which are around these technologies, and we are also trying to use and adopt a lot of new areas for practical usage also. Like for example, drone technology for different sectors, how it can be used, or how telemedicine, like that is another field which is coming up, how that can be best utilized, or for automobile, connected vehicles when we are talking, like how, and what kind of needs are there. We are studying all this and we are trying to provide. But the basic point is, which is our realization that the workforce mainly comes from rural. 70% of India stays in rural areas, and they directly come to take a job, and that becomes the biggest challenge. Their absorption becomes a big issue. So now with this e-learning, we are focusing a lot on e-learning. We are doing a lot of augmented reality, virtual reality, and 360-degree video learning for workers. So even a person who is in Uttarakhand or Northeast or any place in a very, very rural area, on app-based, they can learn all these things. And then, when they actually come for doing a job, they can do it. Like, for example, you would have heard that a lot of handset manufacturing is coming to India now, right? And it is actually a huge demand in that sector. Now, every youth has to be trained. And for that purpose, we have specially designed some programs, which we are trying to make it online for them so that, ultimately they get very easily absorbed. So they come through our LMS, and also, we have provided a job portal, telcojob.in, and through that, we are filling that bridge. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, sir, for that. Now I request Mr. Deepak Desai. Already you have created a lot of flutter, already created a lot of attention by signing several MOUs and making Goa an international hub for skilling. That was very interesting, sir, the tripartite agreement between Siemens and the GIZ. I would like to understand what is in your what is on your plan with respect to harnessing NEP 2020? Very quickly, can you give us 3 alignment points of how NEP 2020 can be aligned with vocational or skill education for state of Goa? Kindly unmute, sir.
No, 2020, what is it?
Any National Education Policy 2020?
National Education Policy. See, actually, national education, I think we have heard about national education when I was a student. I have heard about national education policy of 1986 and thereafter some changes. But what really changes that we are not aware of exactly what are changes mean. Maybe there are changes in curriculum and all these things. It is a very bold statement, but it is my personal feelings and my personal opinion that if we want to change ourselves, if India want to change, we should change our education policy. We should change our education system. As a government officer, I am very, I cannot comment like that. But once if you go to the new National Education Policy 2020, it's a very interesting, as it's a robust things to how to, so whatever challenges we are facing in the education system, education sector, and also in the skilling. So there cannot be two things, education, academic education cannot be different and the skill education cannot be different. It should go in hand to hand. So when we are showing the skill education, there is a lot of things, opportunities, and that is alignment is given to the skilling from the standard 8, standard 9, 10, and 11, 10, 12. See, if you see what are the main challenges in the skill education or the skill development, skill sector. So the dropout from standard 5th, standard 8th, standard 10th, this is such a huge dropout there. So why there are dropouts? And we are giving much, till today, we were giving much importance to the education, academic education, instead of giving skill education to the student. If we say that we have to give opportunities to the student, to the youth, that instead of going just because a student, a youth pass 8th standard, he has to go to 9, 10. Once he passed 10, he has to go to the 11th and 12th. So no one thinks of something like skill, how he has to divert to the skilling. Then he goes to, once he passed to 12, he goes to the graduation. So he will pass BA, BSc, BCom, and then you will get only one certificate. He is not skilled, he is not qualified. It is a just certificate. He is not qualified in any sector, to be frank. So this is a British education system where we were creating only the carcoons, says clerical, for the clerical thing.
Right, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes.
There is a saying that the German model of vocational training, where 1 week of theory and concepts being learned in the classroom, and the next 1 week of going to industries or through apprenticeship and all. Do you think that is going to happen in Goa with your MOU being signed up, sir?
So maybe we are taking it at the second stage, similar type of things. Now our PPP model, it is now dual system of training is one of the things, like food production, food beverages, and we have signed the MOU with the hotels. At the two places, two of ITS, we are carrying such a courses where maximum we are giving attention to the practical courses. There are two benefit in this. A benefit to us that we don't have to create much infrastructure, machineries, and spend the money into that to get the real course. And the hotels or the industries which we are tying up with, they get the benefit because they get the workforce there for that work, and our people, our student, our trainees get the actual practical training. so that they, once they complete 1 year or 2 year, whatever courses, they are really trained in that particular. And in most of the cases, this industry observe them, or they give a separate certificate that they have experience in their establishment, in their hotels. So that is a much benefit, because you says maybe they are not 100%, but if they take only in our ITI institution, then they may not be even trained, not maybe even skilled 50%, to be frank.
Right.
So that such a education we have to get, because it is said, madam has said, that real education you can get skill only in the field,
Yes.
not sitting in the classroom. Classroom is just for, instead of wasting all the 1 year in the classroom, we should test for like this. So either you go in the field, maybe it is 1 week and 15 days, maybe 1 week, 1 month, but it should be focused on something, because skill cannot be get in the classrooms. That is
Great,
not. And
sir. Great.
secondly, we don't have to invest much money. Government is not,
Yes.
no
I
much
understand
money
that. Yes.
required. Yeah.
It's a great initiative. I only wish that it does wonders for the state of Goa, and we can learn from that as well for other states. Thank you very much, sir, for your remarks. Now I would request Mr. Srikanth to very quickly tell us the TEP, the Technology Entrepreneurship Program, and also tell us how do we build these what is called composite skills. Composite skills comprise of technology skills, managerial skills. So all round of skills will have to be built. Otherwise, we are not going to create a workforce that is going to be suitable for future. So these 2 points, if you can answer and help us understand, with that, we will conclude our discussion for the day. Unmute, sir. Kindly unmute, sir.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was on mute. Thanks. Thank you for that question. I think very relevant point. And Technology Entrepreneurship Program was based exactly on what we are talking about right now, right? Unless and until, see, today, if you look at us, right? In our age, we used to play with something called Meccano. Then it became mechanics. Then it became Lego. And now it has become Let Go. Hardly anyone uses the hands to do things. And that's where it is important for us to ensure that our people actually try that hands out, do things with their own hands. And that's where the Technology Entrepreneurship Program was positioned. The Technology Entrepreneurship Program, which we had created, and I can see my predecessor, Sujeev Nairo here, who actually worked on creating that program. This was a program with ISB where we were looking at how technology can be used, how entrepreneurship can be encouraged, how design thinking can be brought into education, how you can actually look at creating things. And probably one of the successful things of this program has been an air-conditioned helmet, which has been used a lot in the external construction going on in the Middle East, etc. So getting people to think differently, think at something which is solving a problem. Now, coming to the composite skills, I think what we need to realize, and if you look at any skills report across the globe today, everyone talks about transferable skills. Sunita ji also spoke about in the beginning that yes, you have to have these technologies, 10 technologies like data sciences, artificial intelligence, everything is important. So what is important is that people should understand how to apply technology, understand how to work as a team, communicate properly. So all the 21st century transferable skills need to be covered and they need to be imparted to the people. So along with the technology skills that people have, we are also running programs. In fact, we just recently concluded a program where over 7,000 youth of Telangana underwent a program. And this is not only engineering, it was across disciplines on understanding what is artificial intelligence, understanding data sciences, as well as machine learning. So typical things, programs are being done. So while we are looking at, third is leadership qualities, which is also very, very important. And the sooner you bring in these things, and we do it in a different manner. We have something called as a task student ambassador, right? While we get these people as nominations from the colleges, etc., these people become leaders in their own community itself. We give them inputs on how exactly, we give leadership training to them also. But these are our people who actually talk about tasks, help us get students for various programs, etc. So imagine, without actually telling them that, look, you are being groomed into being leaders for tomorrow or the future, we are actually implementing it in a very, very subtle manner, where these people, when they join organizations, they automatically would be taking responsibilities. They would be the first one to aspire for different kind of things. And that's typically what we do here at TASK. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent, sir. That is so nice of you for having put forth all these points. And it gives us a lot of promise in terms of what's happening on this landscape. In the interest of the time, we may have to wrap it up now. I would like to thank all the esteemed guests on the panel for their valuable inputs over the last 1 hour. And also, I would like to thank everyone for patiently listening to us. In summary, the education system is also supposed to catch up. And for example, there is something called the New Zealand's Educating for the Future Index, on which it ranks top, where the curriculum framework for future skills is in place, the collaboration between industry, the cultural diversity, and the focus on tolerance. These are some of the things which help New Zealand stand out. They encourage the students to think independently, which is a theory for us, for most of us at least. We encourage them to think independently or think critically or think creatively, which in turn builds their confidence and results in higher levels of innovation. So therefore, education, industry, and the government all will have to come together to make Indian landscape of skill sector a very, very important hub, so that we gain to march into future by assuming the leadership for 21st century. So thank you very much, and I hand over this to Sudhir for his concluding remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sudhakar. One good thing has given he has been our moderator in the past, even for the fireside chat. Even in this, a well-researched, to the point question, bringing out all the solutions, the gap and challenges. And with this, thank you very much, Mr. Rao, for moderating this session. And I would like to thank Sunita ma'am, the way and for and what needs to be done. She could give us the overall view. And I would also like to thank Mr. Arvind Bali, who's a CEO for the telecom sector skill, for giving an overall view in the telecom sector and touching on the other aspects as well. And Mr. Shrikant Sinha ji for touching upon the new initiatives in this discussion. Otherwise, I regularly follow Academy of Skill and Knowledge. And of course, thank you very much for various initiatives, how and in the Telangana, in the land of how the women entrepreneurs are surging. I would like to thank all the panelists of this session. Thank you very much.